Have you ever been out in public somewhere, like a restaurant or at the mall, and you go to sit down somewhere at a table, and you set your phone right next to you, just so you can check it, you can see when you get notifications, stuff like that? This may seem like a general question to ask, but I want to prove to you how common this certain situation I'm going to talk about can be. Cell phones get hacked every day, and your phone can very easily be hacked by anybody, a random stranger, and you wouldn't even know it. Um, the reason why this is so important is because we all have information on our phones that we want to keep private and to ourselves. And not even that it's like bad or embarrassing information, but like maybe it's for work or something, or like classified information you need to keep to yourself that's on your phone. You don't want that getting stolen. So this is why I'm not really trying to raise awareness, but let people know that this stuff actually goes on. The multiplying of ultrasound waves gives researchers the ability to read text messages, make fraudulent calls on anybody's cell phone up to 30 feet away. So I've been researching what ultrasonic waves are, what ultrasound waves are, the same thing, and how they work to actually hack into people's phones. And I myself have an iPhone, and they can easily hack, or they can hack into Siri, and they can hack into Google. So I think a lot of people out there have iPhones, so this kind of applies to a lot of people. I'm going to talk about three things today, and the first one is I'm going to describe what ultrasonic waves are, and how they work to actually hack into the phone. Second, I'm going to talk about the different types of table surfaces that these ultrasonic waves can pass through. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk about the types of defense mechanisms, what we can do to prevent these types of hacks from happening. So, my first point that I'm going to talk about is what ultrasound waves are, or what ultrasonic waves are, and how they work. So they are vibrations of frequencies greater than the upper limit of audible range that us humans can hear. And the way this works is that these piezoelectric transducer is attached to the bottom of the table first, and then on the side of the table away from the cell phone, a waveform generator is used to generate the correct signals. And so after all that's done, the hacker can now send and receive messages and initiate different actions on the phone. And it's actually crazy because our cell phone microphones can actually record, and they do record, these ultrasonic frequencies. Even though we can't hear it, our cell phones can. So now that we kind of understand what these ultrasonic waves are and how they work to hack these phones, we're going to talk about the different types of table surfaces that these ultrasonic waves can pass through. So the first one is going to be metal. And according to Matt Shipman of NC State University, these ultrasonic waves can only pass through metal because of recent technology that has came out a couple years back that has made it possible for it to pass through. And these researchers have tested this metal surface, and it has in fact came out successful. The second two, I'm going to combine these two for my next one, are glass and wood. And these have been tested, and they've came out successful. And you can actually position your phone different ways on the table, like no matter how it's sitting. You can have other like extra objects sitting on the table. So you have a cup, maybe you have a book, or you have someone else's cell phone sitting there. It can still pass through, and it actually has the ability to send and receive messages and like make those calls, read those text messages from both phones, like on both phones. So that's kind of wild. The third one I'm going to talk about is plastic. It is not as reliable as the last three that I just talked about, but according to Ning Zhang of McKelvey School of Engineering, they can still pass through that plastic. Another kind of crazy thing is like a lot of our phone cases are plastic, and so you would think that maybe the phone case could be a defense mechanism, but it's not, because if it's plastic, it can still pass through that. So speaking of defense mechanisms, that's going to be my last thing that I talk about, are how we can kind of prevent these ultrasonic waves and these hackers from getting into our phones. So the first defense mechanism I'm going to talk about is a new kind of updated phone software. And how that would work is by analyzing the received signal, they could be able to determine the difference between the ultrasonic waves and a real genuine human voice, like initiating those commands. Like when it hacks Siri, it can tell the difference between the ultrasonic waves and the actual human voice. The second defense mechanism that I'm going to talk about is actually changing the layout of the phone. And according to the team at the University of Michigan and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, by rearranging where the phone's speaker is or the phone's microphone is, could potentially prohibit those hackers from getting into our phones. So, we've talked about, or I have talked about, what ultrasonic waves are, how they initiate the attacks, and I've also discussed the different types of surfaces that they can pass through. And lastly, I talked about the defense mechanisms against these hackings. So just to recap, the multiplying of these ultrasonic waves has allowed researchers around the world to be able to hack into cell phones, read text messages, make fraudulent phone calls, initiate Siri giving her commands, and hacking into Google as well. All from up to 30 feet away, and all without you even knowing. So next time you're anywhere and you just have your phone laying around, sitting there talking, not even thinking about it, just kind of keep an eye out for your surroundings, or just keep an eye out for any suspicious things. That's kind of like general precautions to take, but I mean, a little goes a long way, and these attacks are more serious than we might think, and the worst part is that they can happen without you even knowing. So it's kind of hard to find how this is happening or who's doing it, who's around you doing it, but there's just small little things we can do to kind of keep an eye out for these certain things.